Adanna was the pride of her village. Everyone in the village loved her. Her smile brought joy. Her hands were quick to help the poor, and many mothers wished their daughters would grow up to be like her. But one day, she did the unthinkable. After secretly giving birth to a child out of wedlock, she took her newborn to the river. With tears in her eyes, she threw the baby into the rushing waters. Then she returned to the village as if nothing had happened. Years later, she lived to regret that action when the baby returned as her identical twin to teach her a lesson. What lesson will she teach her? And how will the villagers react when they find out the truth? Let's delve into this powerful African folktale that will leave you speechless. But wait, before we continue, please support my channel by liking this video, sharing this video, and subscribing for more amazing stories. Now, let's continue. A long time ago, in a quiet village, there lived a beautiful young girl named Adanna. From the day she was born, people said she carried light in her eyes. Her laughter was like music that made even the oldest grandmother smile. Her steps were gentle, her voice was soft, and her hands were always quick to help. If an old woman's firewood was too heavy, Adanna would run to carry it. If a child cried of hunger, Adanna would share her own food. When the women gathered at the stream, they would say to one another, "Ah, blessed is the woman who gave birth to this child." Even the elders noticed her goodness. Whenever there was a quarrel in the marketplace, Adanna's calm words would settle it. If someone was sad, she knew how to comfort them. Truly, she was the pride of the village. Mothers prayed that their daughters would grow to be like her, and young men wished for her hand in marriage. Other parents often used Adanna as an example when correcting their children. "Can't you see Adanna? Why can't you be like her? Have you ever seen Adanna shouting in the marketplace? Have you ever seen her fighting with boys by the stream? Learn from her, and maybe one day you too will be respected." Adanna lived in a small welcoming compound with her parents. Her mother, whom everyone fondly called Mama Ada, was a gentle woman who sold vegetables and foodstuffs at the village square. She was admired for her kindness and her beauty, and the villagers would say, "This is where Adanna got her fine face and her soft heart." Her father, Chief Okeke, was one of the respected elders of the land. He was tall, proud, and strong, with a voice that carried authority. When he spoke at village meetings, people listened. He loved Adanna deeply and often called her the joy of my old age. Truly, she was his pride and treasure. But one fateful day, everything began to change. Adanna, the girl who always woke up before the cock crowed, singing like a morning bird, as she swept the compound, suddenly grew very quiet. She no longer hummed cheerful songs. Instead, she looked weak and tired all the time. Her bright smile, the one that lit up the hearts of many, slowly disappeared. She stopped eating the foods she once loved. Mama Adanna would cook her favorite yam porridge, but Adanna would only push the food around her plate. Sometimes, before the sun rose, she would rush behind the house, bend over and vomit until her body shook. Adanna, who had always been the example of purity, now carried a secret in her heart. She had fallen into temptation, and fear gripped her soul. She could not imagine what would happen if her parents or the villagers found out. The shame would be too heavy to bear. One evening, after crying alone in her room, Adana made a decision. The next morning, she went to a small clinic in the neighboring town to confirm what she already feared. The tests showed she was with child. Her hands trembled as she held the paper, and her knees felt weak. She knew she could not stay in the village, not with the eyes of everyone watching her every move. So, out of fear and shame, Adana went to her parents. She told them she wanted to go and live with her aunt in the next village to learn a skill, perhaps tailoring or hair plaiting. Mama Adana and Chico Keke, proud of her decision, believed their daughter was taking another step toward a bright future. But deep inside, Adana knew the truth. She was running from shame, from whispers, and from the eyes of the people who once looked up to her. Adana left her village quietly before the cock crowed, carrying only a small bundle of clothes. She walked many miles until she reached a neighboring village where no one knew her name or her story. One hot afternoon, as she was resting under a tree, she saw an old woman struggling with a heavy bundle of firewood. Without thinking twice, Adana ran to help her. She carried the firewood on her head and followed the woman home. The old woman, touched by Adana's kindness, looked into her eyes and asked, "My daughter, where are you from? What brings you here?" Adana hesitated, but with tears in her eyes, she told part of her story, that she could not stay in her village and was only looking for a new beginning. The old woman sighed deeply, then placed her wrinkled hand on Adana's shoulder. "You can stay here with me," she said softly. "My hut is small, but my heart is big. You will not suffer." From that day, Adana lived with the old woman. She swept the compound, fetched water, and helped sell vegetables in the market. Sometimes she carried people's loads just to earn a little money for soap and food. Months later, the time came for her to give birth. That night, the old woman stayed by her side, fanning her, wiping her sweat, and praying. By the break of dawn, Adana held a beautiful baby girl in her arms. The child's tiny cry filled the room, and the old woman smiled. "A blessing has come to you, my daughter." But Adana's heart was heavy. Each time she looked at the child, fear and shame grew stronger. She thought of her father and her mother and the villagers. She imagined their voices whispering, "Adana, the girl we trusted, has brought shame upon us." 1 week later, before the rooster crowed, Adana told the old woman she wanted to travel back to her parents' home. The old woman packed some food for her journey and blessed her with prayers. Adana strapped the baby to her back and set out in the darkness. When she reached the big river, she stood at the edge, trembling. The moon shone on the water, making it look like a silver path. Her baby slept peacefully against her back, unaware of what her mother was about to do. Adana's hands shook as she untied the cloth. She looked left and right. No one was there. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "Forgive me." Then, with one last push, she dropped the baby into the rushing water. The river swallowed the child, and the cry was gone. Adana covered her face with her hands, but instead of turning back, she walked away. Step by step, she returned to her village, carrying no child, only a dark secret that would one day return to haunt her. Few years passed, and Adana grew into a fine young woman, admired by all except one whose heart carries the seed of bitterness and vengeance, one who lives deep inside the river where she had been thrown a few years ago. And so, One fateful full moon night, when the water shone like silver, the river spirits gathered. They danced in circles, their voices rising like songs carried by the wind. In the middle of the circle stood a young girl who looked exactly like Adana. The same eyes, the same smile, the same beauty. She was the baby that had been cast into the river, now grown under the care of the water spirits. But unlike the others, who danced joyfully, this girl sat by herself with a sad face. The great river mother, tall and glowing like the moon, noticed her sorrow. She stepped forward, her voice soft but strong. "My child," said the river mother, "why do you sit alone when the others dance? Why do your eyes carry so much sadness when your heart should be full of joy?" The girl raised her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "Great mother," she said, "I cannot forget the day I was cast into these waters. My own mother, the one who should have loved me, threw me away like nothing. The spirits raised me, but the wound in my heart has never healed. I want justice. I want to return and teach her a lesson she will never forget." The river mother was silent for a while. The water around them grew still, as though listening. Then she spoke again, her voice echoing like thunder over the water. "If vengeance is what you seek, then vengeance you shall have. But remember, the path of revenge is heavy, and once you begin, there is no turning back." The girl stood tall, her eyes burning with determination. "I am ready, mother. Let me go." The river mother lifted her hands, and the waters rose like a crown around the girl. A strange wind blew, and a whisper carried through the river. "Go, and let her taste the pain she gave to you." That night, the girl disappeared from the river world. The spirits wailed and clapped their hands. From that moment, Adana's peaceful days were numbered.